the more I think about this, the more I think I must be right. There must be many of you who think I must surely be about to give up. About to give up telling people what to do because nobody listens. Nobody is moved by the truth, logic and morality that I am always harping on about. But then that is precisely the problem, because if people were to be motivated only by submitting to truth, logic and morality, then they wouldn't have a fraction of the problems that they have, and even the fraction that they have would be soon solved, because they would be commonsensical ways of dealing with these things. And this is what I think I'm doing. I'm saying, if you believe in such and such a thing, then you must do such and such a thing. And my favourite example is, if you believed in the Abrahamic God, who revealed the Torah for Jews and the Quran for Gentiles, if you really, really believed in the narrative of the Abrahamic God, then you would do X, Y, and Z. Unfortunately, as I was saying yesterday, people only pretend to believe. They do not, in fact, believe. And this is why Jews talk about their emunah and bitachon, which is knowledge of God's existence and trust in his decisions, because you have to assume that everything happens for a reason. If you believe that everything happens for a reason, and you would believe everything happens for a reason if you worship an omnipotent, omniscient and perfectly moral living God. Which may be equated to a scientist looking upon his creation, perhaps equivalent to, you know, those in a pet shop, in a pet shop many years ago, I saw complicated things that would go round. Well, there were enormous things, but anyway, there were pet rats, and white mice. I forget now, but anyway, they were transparent, and there were all kinds of things that the animals, the mice, could entertain themselves, running in and out and that sort of thing. And I don't even know what they're called now. Pet shop. What are they called? Mice runs or something? Mice pet shop. So there'll be cages, tunnels, tubes. That's what they have. And I saw them in this pet shop, and they were very complicated things. And I guess the child in me made me think, well, I would be, entertained walking through these tunnels. And so okay, what I'm saying is that if we are the mice, the pets of God, or the slaves of God, who created, this sort of tubes and tunnels and stuff for mice to amuse themselves in, he would he would be in perfect control, and he'd see us because it'd be perspex, and he'd know how we were doing, learning our lessons, learning our way around the system of tunnels and tubes that he made for us to run around in, and probably was choosing which of us would be the quickest at learning our way around this tunnel and tube system. So it'd be a kind of controlled experiment, right? It'd be a controlled experiment, and he would see how we were doing, and he'd know, if I guess maybe he had a special breed of mice, and he thought they were going to be specially chosen to show the other lot what to do, and they would be armed with, the ideas that he wanted to spread, and then he saw that they're just not up to the job anymore. They can't do it. They can't teach the Noahide laws properly because maybe all the other mice were mean to them or something, and he would have to think of another way, because the whole point of this experiment would be to make sure they all learned their lesson about what the rules are, and how the tube and tunnel system was supposed to be. So he would have to, well, maybe he thought, okay, he's not supposed to make mistakes, but the thing is, he's going to have it both ways. So the Torah would be the first revelation, and then he saw it was just too difficult because the Jews themselves just couldn't do it, and then they pretend to do it, but they just couldn't, and they didn't want to, and they thought, why the hell should we do it? Well, what's it all for? We're not going to do it. We don't want to do it. And so he had to find another way, because the idea was that he wanted his pet mice to understand the rules, and he was gonna he wanted them to understand, but he couldn't personally intervene, because it's part of the experiment for him to never reveal himself and never personally show the way. He would just create a system in his tubes and tunnels to make sure that the mice capable of learning will have a reasonable chance of learning. And he did have two revelations, and there are two revelations, and one of them has 36 capital punishments, and the other one doesn't. And it's so obvious. It's like, what is stopping the Jews from saying, well, we'd rather, maybe we want to go to heaven. We kind of want to go to heaven if one exists, and we would feel sad if we didn't get in and everyone else got in. And you think, yeah, okay, so you want to get in. You know what you have to do? You will have to follow the easier rules. When you buy complicated electronic goods, and you have the really complicated manual that tells you everything that nobody reads, and you have the the basic manual that tells you how to turn, the obvious things, how to turn the thing on or off, and it's got diagrams, and it's got all the stuff that you need to do to set your printer up or something, because there are two versions of instructions, aren't there? So I'm saying the Quran is the easy version, and the Torah is the hard version, and it's like, you don't like doing the hard version, but there is an easy version. What do you do? You read the easy version and you follow the easy version, right? But I don't think these Jews get it. They seem to think, we're still going to pretend that we're up to following the hard version, even though half the Jews in existence are not even observant. And, half the Jews are at war with the other half of Jews. So that's not working for them, and just as liberalism has destroyed Gentile national identity, it is in the process of destroying Israeli national identity. And it's obvious, isn't it? And now, talking about animal analogies, some of you who pay attention may remember me talking about this fox cub, this mangy fox cub that I saw many years ago in broad daylight, standing on a pizza box, obviously hungry, desperate to get at its content, get at its contents, but standing on the pizza box, and I longed to tell it to just step back and then see what it had to do. But because it was standing on the pizza box, ripping at it, it didn't really get what the simple solution was. It would be to step back and flick open the pizza box. But because it was so desperate, it didn't see the obvious way. And obviously I couldn't communicate to the fox cub what it had to do. But you would have thought, Jews speak English, I speak English, Muslims speak English, I speak English, I speak clearly. And for several years now I've been saying, look, this is obvious, this is what you people have to do. Why don't you just do it? Or if you're not sure, maybe you can talk to each other about whether I'm right or wrong. I mean, it's possible I could just be a very silly woman. But I don't think anybody is capable of even discussing what I'm saying. They don't seem to understand. Hello, Christine. This is kind of dedicated to you. I don't think you get it either. So it's very frustrating, talking to somebody who says she's Catholic, but she doesn't really believe. It's just a kind of make-believe thing. So if you expect Christine Ramsey to really hold on to Catholic beliefs, then she won't get it, because she doesn't really believe. I think fundamentally she's atheist because she sees the world through an atheist standpoint, because she follows mainstream media. It's important to her to be seen to be middle class and mainstream, but then she has to reconcile that with her Catholic identity, and it doesn't really make sense, and so I think her head is a bit of, well, her mind is a bit of a mess. I don't know about her hair, but the contents of her head would be a mess. And so she gets angry at me for pointing these things out. And probably so do Jews and Muslims who don't like what I'm telling them. How could I know the right way, and how could they be so wrong? They, with their traditions in Judaism and traditions in Islam. But then, perhaps I really am special. So, what are you talking about? Isn't what the definition of deception? A person with a strange Irish name. Why do I want others to believe in something that I don't? I don't necessarily disbelieve in it. I'm saying that if you believe in the narrative of the Abrahamic God, then this is what you must do. So it's up to you guys to decide if you believe in it or not. I wouldn't know. But obviously I have to concentrate on the theist viewpoint, because The government is already doing the atheist solution to things, which is vaccines and lockdown and trusting our incompetent and corrupt politicians to one day put things right. Or we could invoke the supreme authority that is the Abrahamic God. It's very simple. You want to believe in God if he exists, and it seems possible that just by believing that he exists, you could fake it till you make it. And now Christine is being racist to me. She says it's something to do with my not being white. Oh, why do you say that? I'm trying to help white people. I like to think that God has a sense of humour. Not necessarily sadistic, but, he's already, done what he can. He's left all those clues, and if you, want to reject them because you don't want to do the thing that recognizing what those clues mean impels you to do, then, that's your own lookout. But if you believe in the Abrahamic God, you would know that he's supposed to have only given 2 revelations, the Torah to Jews and the Quran for Gentiles. So if Jews these days are not up to following the Torah, then they must follow the other one, the easy one. There's even a term for it, isn't there? Instructions 2. So you know what I mean about, getting 2 sets of instructions, the kind of thick manual, in several languages, like a booklet. You don't want to read it. And then the kind of the A4 thing, or the folded one that you can unfold, and it's full of diagrams telling you where the important components of your electronic device are, with arrows, and telling you what they're for and how to switch it on and put the battery in or whatever. And that's the one you want, not the complicated one with the 36 capital offences. You want the easy one. This is what a rational child would do. And this is what I keep going back to. And I think a clever Jewish child would say, as soon as he heard about being a no-hide, I imagine the clever Jewish child would ask his Rabbi, can we become no-hides? And then I guess it would be spanked for saying such a thing and asking such a question. So Christine is asking me all kinds of silly questions. No, I don't think God is a sadist. He's left us enough clues. If we're too thick to pick them up, then and cause ourselves pain, then that's our own lookout. What was God's plan with the dinosaurs? Well, did God promise dinosaurs eternal life? Why are you even asking about dinosaurs? Why did God give the gift of engineering and architecture to the Romans and only giving tent building skills to the Israelites? Well, the Romans had an empire, and Jews were, the borders of Israel have been defined in the Torah, so they can't go beyond that, because it would be ungodly, perhaps, forbidden. So they're not allowed to, and maybe they're just sort of not meant to build things like that, because it's not their job. Because there's a verse in the Quran that says God has divided you into tribes and nations, each with our own specialities and point to make. Christine Ramsey asks, why did God give code-finding skills to people in the 19th century and not to earlier people? Why did God give the industrial skills to the West and not to the East? Well, I don't know the answers to all these questions, but maybe it's saying, yes, you could have a head start on other nations, but eventually they catch up, even though you were the first to have the Industrial Revolution. So you had better think of something else. Maybe God created a world in which every dog will have its day. So Christine says, I am a narcissist. Well, she believes in the power of a deceived Jew, which is idolatry. Hello, Abdullah Al-Jalal. I don't think I'll be the next Queen of England, but thank you for appalling Christine Ramsey with this idea. I don't want to be monarch. Honestly, I don't. I'm just happy with, being government advisor and overseeing the implementation of secular Quranism. And of course I would consult, Muslim scholars from time to time when I am in doubt about, the meaning of some verses. And, I think it'd be, good to involve the whole world in this project, because obviously I want even China to have secular Quranism with Chinese characteristics, and then we can all be more or less under the same system and resolve our differences more quickly than before. So that's all I wanted to say, really. Thank you all for coming by and posting your very amusing comments in the chat. I hope Muslims and Jews will talk to each other. I really do, because it's so important to make it clear to Christians that they should give up their idolatry and blasphemy, because it is offensive to God if He exists. And give up the New Testament, which doesn't say anything clearly. It only makes vague extremist pronouncements that have been used in the past to kill quite a few people. So we have to submit to the divine rule of law, and we have a lighter version in the Quran, and it doesn't have 36 capital offences, and I think Jews can, they'll be okay interpreting it in Israel. There's no need for them to reconstitute the Sanhedrin. There's no need for them to worry about building the third temple, because God, if He exists, has put the Al-Aqsa Mosque on Temple Mount for a reason, saying, hold on there. Hang on a minute. Are you sure you really want the temple back? Because it'll start the whole cycle of a corrupt priesthood. Do you really want the Sanhedrin? You don't, not really. The most you can do is submit to the entry-level starter theocracy that is secular Quranism. I think that's the most that you can expect modern 21st century Jews to do in Israel. And if they do it, then, maybe the rest of the world will follow, the Western nations. But now, everything's so unclear with Afghanistan and, Israel wondering which way to pivot and wondering if America is going to abandon Israel and, all sorts of shenanigans going around in the world. And so I hope those who claim to believe in God will discuss it with other people who claim to believe in God and ask themselves if what I say is, could be correct. That, all the signs are saying these Christians who no longer believe in Christianity, and they no longer believe because their governments have lost the will to burn them at the stake for denying the divinity of Jesus. They stopped in the late 1600s. And then, after about 100 years, there was the American Revolution, followed by the French Revolution, which were, rejection. They were a rejection of Christianity, wasn't it? I mean, just think about it. The American Revolution. What did the Americans reject? They rejected the monarch, George III. They rejected the Church of England. They rejected, therefore, the Trinity, because we know that 5 of the founding fathers, like the 5 pillars of Islam, the 5 founding fathers of America were the 5 pillars of Islam in America, and they were Adams, Franklin, Jefferson, Madison, and Washington. They were not Christians. They rejected the Trinity. They relied on chapter 2, verse 256 of the Quran, on which the First Amendment is based, and it said there is no compulsion in belief. Truth stands clear from error. And so, the American Republic was in fact an Islamic republic, and these poor old Americans, they didn't really understand their history, or maybe they were just too triggered about Muslims to realise it. But anyway, the clues are still in the White House. There is a White House Quran. It belonged to Thomas Jefferson. He was one of the founding fathers who rejected the Trinity. So really, the American Republic was founded as an Islamic republic. And it is time the Americans acknowledged this fact. And if they can't, maybe Muslims can help them along a little bit. Particularly Muslims in America. So, this is something you could be doing, really, couldn't you? I mean, all these Muslims in the West worried about losing their identity and being absorbed into the swamp of globo homo in their Western nations that they are now citizens of. Surely they must be good guests in their host Western nations and show them a better way than the globo homo of the degenerate liberal democracy that they now live in. And if only Jews would, rabbis particularly would rank even secular ideologies. Is China perhaps more no-eyed than the liberal West? Is it? I think it is. I mean, I think in many ways what is successful about China is its one-party state. And the Quran has a verse advising against people dividing their religion their moral system into sects. And the Chinese have refrained from doing so. So that's why it's more successful than the West. At least its party has a party constitution and it has principles, and its party members know that. And those of us in the West who are concerned about the way their government is going, they should have a care and be able to talk about these things to people in real life, that they know it is important that they do it in this way, or it will just be a waste of time talking to strangers on the internet, using anonymous names and never being taken seriously. It's time to stand up and be counted. I don't know why Christine Ramsey thinks I'm being treacherous. I am giving timely advice to Westerners who have gone astray, who hate their government, who cannot see the light at the end of their particular tunnel. Christine Ramsey says, I hope MI6 is listening. I hope so too. I'd be very offended if they're not listening. So here we are. We already have a solution. The solution is secular Quranism. It's a global solution for the British, for the American, for the Israelis, for the Chinese, and everyone else who want to get on board. And we can all tidy up our room, spring clean our homes. Well, it wouldn't be spring now, but we can begin the tidying up process. So we can be people who can act according to common sense again. So, I will sum up what I just said, which is that for Jews who want to build their third temple, they must by now know that it's not possible. The signs are inauspicious. They are inauspicious because Israel is a liberal democracy. Al-Aqsa Mosque is on Temple Mount. Jews have no appetite for a Torah theocracy, either out of Israel or within Israel. Jews are divided. So there will be Jews who want very strict religious laws, and there will be Jews who want to live as secular Jews, and secular Quranism in Israel would be the happy medium. And finally, we should just read the writing on the wall, and it's so clear, isn't it? If the Abrahamic God exists and revealed two revelations, first to the Jews and finally to Gentiles, then what's stopping us from taking the hint and seeing this pandemic as an opportunity for global repentance, led by rabbis, inviting perhaps Christians, perhaps Muslims into their synagogues on Yom Kippur, so that they can collectively repent of disobeying God's laws. And maybe then the pandemic will abate. That would be an easier way of making it all finish, rather than trusting to our corrupt and incompetent politicians, wouldn't it? It seems so obvious, but I fear there will be many people who will object to even this simple and easy solution. And that's all I have to say. Thank you all for coming by.